So some of you pinged me to give another example of microservices. So in this 2-minute quick overview, I am going to explain microservices with another simple example. This also helps you to understand Kubernetes better. So we will take an example of e-commerce application. Earlier, MNC organization develop application in monolith form, means applications are developed as a bundle in which all services and functions of an applications are developed together. But with the time, as these services start increasing, their code and dependencies start affecting each other, and it becomes very difficult or almost impossible to work on individual functions or services in isolation. You effectively have to take down the whole application even to make a small change in the application, and also multiple teams working on a same monolith application make it very difficult to understand what code controls what function. So organization came with the idea of microservices based application where we break apart our monolithic application into smaller parts, generally based on the function which they offer, due to the various benefits of microservices which we already discussed in the previous video. And due to all these benefits provided by microservices, this result in the increased usage of container technologies, as the container are the perfect host for the microservices based application, as they are lightweight and independent of the environment. I gave a very good real world example in the previous video. So if you haven't checked out the previous video till now, go out and check that as well. And this increased usage of containers and microservices technology result in applications that are comprised of hundreds and thousands of containers, and managing these thousands of containers across multiple environments using scripts or code made things more complex and tedious, which led to the need for having a proper way to manage these containers, that is container orchestration technologies like Kubernetes. I hope till here we all are clear, and if you still have any doubt, I strictly suggest you to ask your doubt in comments right now. Believe me, information about all this is very necessary to understand Kubernetes. As we progress, you will come to know that all this information that we discuss here is an absolute necessity to understand Kubernetes. Hi everyone, I am Kaustubh Sharma, AWS Certified Solution Architect and Developer, your multi-cloud DevOps guy. Welcome to the brand new series of Kubernetes. Thanks for all your response and support on the previous video. I would like to mention some of the comments. This one is from Timothy Boyd. He says that I loved your video from beginning to end, not only your fun movie, but all the content. He further mentioned your efforts certainly deserve such a response. I have subscribed and looking forward to taking in more of your content. Bless you. Thank you for your blessing, Timothy, and you have taken some time out to comment on the video, to show support on the video. This means a lot to me. I also got some feedback from you guys. I always try to improve myself, and feedback is an important factor to improve ourselves. Such feedback I received from Smruti that thanks a lot for sharing this useful video. It has purely covered all bases, all fundamental points with depth knowledge of Kubernetes. Just a request, when make next video, please reduce your speech, just decrease your flow of speech. This helps us to understand the video better. First of all, I would like to thank Smruti for providing me such a good and honest feedback. I really appreciate it. I would definitely try to decrease my speech rate in this video. I also suggest you guys to use YouTube playback speed control option in the setting of the video. Just go to the setting. If you found me too fast, change playback speed from normal to 0.75, or if you found me too slow, change it to the 1.25. I would also like to thank Anirudh for his valuable comment on the previous video. I also have a request from you guys, don't lose hope in mid, or think like that first I will learn cloud technologies, then I will learn about Kubernetes. Don't think like this. It's a very bad thinking, as in IT every day new services, new technology is coming every day. Of course, side by side you can read about it, But if you go by this way, you will never going to learn anything, neither in the cloud or neither in the Kubernetes. So go with the flow. If you don't understand anything, you can ask me in the comment section. I will definitely try to reply each and every comment. Will try to explain you all with more simple examples, and I strictly suggest you to watch the full video. I am sure you will get your questions answered somewhere in the video, or so watch the video till the end, and I can guarantee you that by the end of the video you will definitely get a complete understanding all the concepts explained in the video. And then if you still have any doubt, don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section. So we will start from where we left off in the last video, as now we have understood that Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration platform, and we have also got the answers to our three questions. That is, what is open source, which means Kubernetes source code is public and even we can contribute to its development and we can modify it as per our needs. Second question was, what are the containers and why do we need them? So containers pack our application code with configuration and dependencies, and it runs as resource isolated process, ensuring quick, reliable and consistent deployments regardless of the environment. Third question was, what is an orchestration platform? So as container increases, it becomes difficult to manage them, as we just discussed right now. That's why we require an orchestration platform like Kubernetes to manage them and to run containers at scale. There are many other container orchestration platforms as well, just like Docker, Swarm, Mesos, etc. But Kubernetes is the most popular and the most widely used compared to them. It helps in automating software deployment, scaling and management, and how it is doing that we will learn soon. As we already know, Kubernetes is built on over a decade of experience and the best practices of Google and the Kubernetes community. It provides objects and API which are required for microservices based applications. So if you are wondering what is an API, so it is a code that helps to different software or even microservices to communicate and exchange data with each other. We will discuss more it when we learn about Kubernetes APIs. And also Kubernetes utilize the declarative configuration. So declarative is one of the widely used terms in the IT industry. In declarative, you need to describe what you want to accomplish, which means in declarative you just need to declare the output you want to achieve. Whereas there is another term, imperative, in which you need to describe what you want to accomplish, and along with that you need to tell how you want to accomplish that explicitly. So let's understand all these terms with the help of an example. So suppose you want to have a coffee or a tea or any other beverage. One way to get a coffee is to order it from a restaurant, which is a very simple method, and you just need to say that I want a coffee and you will get it, which is a declarative way where I just need to describe what I want to accomplish or what exactly I want in the output. Another way is to make coffee yourself. For that you need to know the recipe, like step 1 to boil water, step 2 to pour coffee beans, step 3 to mix some milk, and something like that. Means you need to know all these steps to make a coffee, which is an imperative way where I need to describe what output I want, and along with that I need to explicitly define and I need to explicitly know how to get that output. So the same thing in configuration terms. A configuration is nothing, it's like a setting or an arrangement which you want to achieve, and we define that arrangement in our configuration files. Suppose there is a certain configurations of a system right now, we call it as subconfiguration 1, and now you want to change that arrangement or configuration to configuration 2. And as we already know that there are two ways of doing that, imperative and declarative. So in imperative we need to define what is the final configuration you want, that is configuration 2, and we have to define the steps of how to transform configuration 1 into configuration 2. While in declarative, we just need to define that we want to achieve configuration 2, and that's all. The system will take care of the rest. So I hope you get a clear understanding of declarative and imperative and differences between them. Now we know that Kubernetes utilizes declarative configuration. We need to write this declarative configuration somewhere, right? For that, we need an editor for which we are going to use Visual Studio Code or VS Code in short by Microsoft, which is widely used across MNC organization Windows. But still, I suggest you to use VS Code as it is very lightweight and fast, never stuck while switching between the files or typing the source code. And it also has an IntelliSense code completion and debugging feature which help us to auto-complete our code and debug the error in our code. It also supports hundreds of languages which make VS Code highly productive with other awesome features like syntax highlighting, bracket matching, auto indentation, box selection, snippets, and much more. It also has the ability to add other third-party extensions which I like most about the VS Code. I will show you these and some other special features and shortcut of the VS Code that will help you to write your code faster. And it is available on all major platforms like Linux, Windows and Mac. So let's download VS Code from the official VS Code URL. I have already explained how URLs work in the first video. All URL used in the video will be mentioned either in the description or either in the first pinned comment.
Let's open any browser and search for VS Code download. Click on the first official link. I have already provided the link in the description. So we are on the official download page of the VS Code. It is available for all the three major platforms like Microsoft, Windows 8, 10 and 11. It is also available for Linux platform in dev format for Debian and Ubuntu Linux, and also in RPM format for Red Hat and other supported Linux. It is also available for Mac platform. As we are very enthusiastic developers and we always want to use new features of any software as soon as they are available, that's why we use VS Code Insiders. This insider build is also available for all the platforms, Windows, Linux and other. Through this insider build, we will get updates daily. Don't worry, these updates are very small in size in some MBs, and if you want, you can turn them off. As I have a Windows machine, so I will install my Windows user using user installer option. But here you can see three options of 64-bit, 32-bit and ARM. You can see your machine architecture in your OS setting. If you are on the Windows machine, just like me, and then press Ctrl+I to open your Windows setting. Go to System, open your About section, and here in the device specification, you can see system type as 64-bit operating system. Means I have to download 64-bit version of VS Code. So let's click on this, which redirects us to the starting page of VS Code. And VS Code user setup for 64-bit operating system has been started downloading. Download has been completed. Before opening the installer, let's read some basic information about VS Code. That it is very lightweight, powerful source code editor available on all three major OS platforms. It also supports hundreds of languages like JavaScript, TypeScript, Node.js, C++, C#, Java, Python, PHP, and Go, and also support runtime as well for .NET and Unity framework. And we have also discussed that extensions are the one of the topmost features of VS Code, which enables additional languages, themes, debuggers, and commands and third-party tools to directly integrate with VS Code. So let's continue with our VS Code setup. Open the installer. Okay, so first we got an usual license agreement, which no one reads. So if you want to read it, go ahead. VS Code is also an open source, so you can read out its source code at this given URL. I will just accept it and click on next. So here you can set up the location where you want to install the VS Code. I will install at the default location, so it will be easier for me to find the location of the VS Code at later point of time if it is required. Click on next and select the folder where the start menu shortcut should be created. Click on next. This section is important as here we can check the box to add open with code action to our Windows Explorer file context menu and directory context menu, which let you open your files and directories or folders directly from the Windows Explorer or this PC. Third checkbox enable us to make VS Code as default editor for the supported file type. So whenever you open a supported file type which is there in your system, it will directly open it inside the VS Code. Last checkbox is to add VS Code location to the path environment variable directly so that you can use VS Code from any directory in Windows PowerShell and command prompt. Click on the next. Here is the preview of the information which we selected. Click on the install, and with this installation process is started. And let me fast forward the installation process for you. The VS Code installation process is completed. Close this installer. Now go to the Windows Explorer or this PC. To open this Windows Explorer directly, you can use the keyboard shortcut Windows key or Start key plus E. You can use this shortcut from anywhere to open the Windows Explorer. So I'm going to use this document folder for my project. You can use any location. So let's create a new folder by using the keyboard shortcut Control plus Shift plus N. Let me name it as a project and open the context menu by right clicking on the mouse or we can use the keyboard shortcut Shift plus F10. Shift plus F10 is the keyboard shortcut for your mouse right click or whatever your right click on the mouse can do. You can perform the same action using Shift plus F10. Now as we selected those checkbox earlier while installing VS Code, you can see we are getting options of open with code insiders here. So just click on this. This will open this project directory into your VS Code. So here we are getting a permission pop-up as you can write scripts in VS Code which can be used to alter your system configuration. So it is just asking, do you trust the authors of this file in this folder? So just click on trust the authors of all files. So I don't have to do that for all files. I just click on yes. So here on the left hand side, you can see we are in the project directory. Click on the file menu or Alt plus F and enable the autosave option to enable auto saving of the file. So you don't have to worry about saving the file every time you make changes in the file by continuously pressing the Ctrl S, or this way you will not lose your work in case of any power issues. Next thing we should check out is extension, which is a wonderful feature of VS Code. You can open it by clicking this symbol or using the keyboard shortcut Ctrl plus Shift plus X. And here search for the term Kubernetes and you can see Kubernetes extension from Microsoft. Make sure you install the verified blue tick extension. This extension works with any Kubernetes anywhere like with Azure, AWS, GCP, Minikube and any other. So just click on install. While it is installing, you can read out the features it is providing and the purpose it serves, which is to develop, deploy, and debug the Kubernetes applications.
We will add further extension as per our needs whenever required. So I explain the declarative way in detail because I want you to explain the working of Kubernetes in visual manner. I am explaining each and everything for a certain reason, so I suggest you to watch the video end to end. And even if you know the stuff, don't skip the video. So Kubernetes utilizes declarative configuration, means we need to tell in what final state we want our containers to be in, and Kubernetes will automatically do that. So now the question arises, how can Kubernetes manage them and do the deployment automatically? So Kubernetes is able to do so by continuously comparing the current state and the final state of Kubernetes objects. I will explain what are these Kubernetes objects, but first understand the working of Kubernetes with an example. Suppose I want to make a rectangle. So as we know, we are going to follow the declarative approach. Means I have to tell that I want a rectangle of width this, height this in our file, and this information will be used to make a rectangle. I don't need to explicitly tell that you have to go this way, then you have to turn right and all that, as that would be an imperative approach. So this way is how Kubernetes works. But we want to automatically detect the changes, right? Means if I change my height by twice in my file, then I want my system to detect it automatically and make the rectangle with the double height. So how can it automatically detect the changes? It can do so by constantly comparing the width and height mentioned in the file with the actual width and the height of the rectangle. So whenever I make the changes in the file, it automatically changes the same in the actual rectangle. Similarly, Kubernetes works. Just like for our rectangle, we need to provide information like width and height. In Kubernetes, we need to provide the information about Kubernetes objects, so that Kubernetes will constantly compare these Kubernetes object in our file with the actual Kubernetes object in the architecture. So let's understand what are these Kubernetes objects which we need to provide in our files, which Kubernetes will use to manage our containers, not only manage but to automatically manage our containers. Before we start with the Kubernetes object, we need to understand these two terms, nodes and cluster. And I want one thing from you guys, please watch the video till the end. I can guarantee you that by the end of the video, you will definitely get a complete understanding of all the concepts explained in the video. So node is a simple server machine on which Kubernetes is installed. That's it. Nothing special there. Any system on which Kubernetes is installed is a node. I have already explained what is a server in detail in my previous video. This node may be a physical or virtual machine in the cloud, but what would happen if this machine or nodes failed? After all, these are the machines only, right? Which means we need more than one node. So our containerized application won't get down in case of node failure. So as a best practice, we should always use multiple nodes, and a group of these nodes is known as Kubernetes cluster. Hence, if any one node fails, our application will still be accessible from other nodes in the Kubernetes cluster, as multiple nodes are grouped into the Kubernetes cluster. That's why Kubernetes came with this idea of cluster. So in Kubernetes architecture, there are two types of Kubernetes nodes. One is worker nodes and another one is control plane nodes. Worker nodes make up the Kubernetes data plane that runs the actual container images. So these are the machines where our containerized applications are running. There can be multiple worker nodes in a single cluster, but every cluster has at least one worker node. While control plane nodes, also known as master nodes, which make up the Kubernetes control plane, acts as the brain of the Kubernetes cluster, as it manages all the worker nodes and the processes in the cluster. There can be multiple control plane nodes in a single Kubernetes cluster. In real-world production environments, the control plane usually across multiple computers and a cluster usually runs across multiple nodes, providing the fault tolerance and high availability. If you want to know more about FT and HA, that is fault tolerance and high availability, I have explained them in depth with real-world example, questions and answer format, so you can check that as well. Kubernetes came after a long development era of IT, from monolith deployment to virtualized deployment to containerized deployment. So here are these two terms, development and deployment, that you are hearing but maybe don't know the difference between them. So here deployment means moving application from one place to another. Typically deployment refers to the transfer from a development environment to a test environment and then to a production environment. And we have already discussed these environments in the previous video. While development refers to the process of creating, designing, deploying and supporting the software. So Kubernetes is the latest technology and it has built over a decade of experience with the large tech companies and its community. But that doesn't mean it does not have any cons. It is very important to learn the cons of any technology before learning it, as it can be asked in interviews as well, that what are the cons of Kubernetes, and along with that it is combinedly asked how you are dealing with them in the production environment. So I talked about the cons right after the control plane nodes, because the Kubernetes control plane nodes require specialized knowledge to manage them, and we have to carefully manage them as control plane nodes are managing our worker nodes, and worker nodes are the ones on which our actual containerized applications are running. Also, the updates from open source community are very frequent and require careful paging in order to avoid disrupting our workloads. And also, Kubernetes is too heavyweight for individual developers who require to set up for simplistic applications and infrequent deployments. Or the developers who don't generally change their application code, Kubernetes will be more complex method for them compared to the simple deployment of application on a virtual machine. And Kubernetes has often need additional tools like kubectl CLI, that is Kubernetes CLI, services, CI/CD, workflows, and other DevOps practices to fully manage access, identity, governance, and security, and all these. So to resolve this con, cloud service provider came with an paid managed Kubernetes services like AWS EKS, that is Elastic Kubernetes Service, Azure AKS, that is Azure Kubernetes Service, and Google GKE, that is Google Kubernetes Engine. So till now we have discussed many questions which can be asked in cloud and DevOps or Kubernetes interview. So these interviews are generally start with the ask about your previous experience in cloud or DevOps or Kubernetes, or what is Kubernetes. Simply start with that also. So your experience will be developed as our series progresses, and also I will make all the files used in the demos public, so you can show them for your skills to the recruiter. So till now we have discussed what is Kubernetes, what are the some benefits of Kubernetes, what are the containers and why do we need them. We have all seen this with real world examples. You can simply pause the screen at the time of the question to read the answers, or you can see the timestamps in the video description or in the pinned comment if you want to read them again in more detail. We have also discussed what is container runtime, what are the microservices, why do we need them with the animation in this video. We also discussed what is an orchestration platform, how does Kubernetes work, how does Kubernetes work automatically, what is a Kubernetes cluster, what are the Kubernetes nodes, types of node, and we have seen all this with examples. As Kubernetes popularity grows due to its benefit and easiness, and most important, its free open source project. Open source means its source code is publicly available as discussed in the previous video. However, it doesn't mean it's free. Most people got confused as most of the open source software are generally free, but that's not always the case. But to our knowledge, Kubernetes is free and open source both. You don't have to pay a single penny to use Kubernetes. But as discussed, you have to pay if you don't want to manage the Kubernetes control plane nodes and want to use cloud service providers paid offering like AWS EKS, Azure AKS, Google GKE to focus on your application. Then you have to pay to your respective cloud service provider. We will learn more about Kubernetes cluster and nodes in the next video. I thought to start the Kubernetes cluster demo in this video, but I am confused about which cloud service provider I should start my Kubernetes demos, as the creation of Kubernetes cluster will cost me money. So why don't make it in such a use that it would be helpful for more people. So I have put a poll on my YouTube channel community page as well as on the LinkedIn. The links will be available in the description. So please vote on your favorite cloud service provider which you are using or you want to prefer to watch the Kubernetes demos with. As you can see, this video is already long. So from the next video, we will fully fledged deep dive into Kubernetes cluster demos. I will show you each and every step on the screen, and we will also discuss the errors we got and how to troubleshoot them. That's all in this video. If you have any doubt, please let me know in the comment section, And before going, please subscribe and like the video.